Welcome, everyone, to the Information's TITV. My name is Akash Pasricha. It is Friday, September 19th. It is a newsy end to a very newsy week, and we have got a great lineup of guests for you today. We've got Alex Himel, the head of Meta's Wearables unit, coming on the show in just a few minutes, so do not go anywhere. That's a very exciting conversation. We're also going to break down Nvidia's big move to invest $5 billion into Intel and then spend another $900 million to do one of those acqui-hires that have become all too familiar in the land of AI. We're going to talk all about that. We've then got our Elon Musk reporter to tell us about the ex-oilman who has now become key to Elon's supercomputer ambitions. And we're going to end the show with a discussion with our Apple reporter about his story that talks about how OpenAI is going after key Apple hardware talent for its own hardware ambitions. It is a busy, busy show today, so let's get right on into our first segment. You probably know all about the Meta Ray-Bans display that the company unveiled this week. It is the first major smart glasses with a display from a big tech giant that will be going on sale to the public at the end of this month. Alex Himel is the executive leading Meta's Wearables division, which means he oversees the group that made this product. And last night, I sat down with Alex for about 25 minutes for a great conversation about how he plans to make money from this highly capital-intensive product. We also talked about whether or not he could ever see the new wristband that they've developed, expanding its functionality into fitness. And I also asked him about how the company's superintelligence group is changing how the wearables team functions. It was a great conversation. I'm excited to play it for you. Here is my chat with Alex Himel. Alex Himel, welcome to TITV. It's great to have you.
Hey, thanks for having me. I feel a little underdressed, but it's great to be here.
Well, look, dress aside, I feel like, my glasses are really the ones that are lacking right now. They're not as cool as yours.
Thank you. These are the new Ray-Ban Meta glasses. This is Generation 2. These are the blue frames, colorway, and they've got the upgraded hardware.
Nice. Well, I'm excited to talk all about the glasses, and we have so much to get to. You unveiled a lot this week at Meta Connect. I think people have seen the glasses by now. They've got to see some of the demos and stuff like that. And so I really want to start by diving into the business model behind the wearables group that you lead, but then also the display glasses that you unveiled. I think it's pretty well understood that it's going to be difficult to make money on the hardware side of these units. And so, I just want to understand from you at a high level, how do you think about the business model and making money from this product?
Well, our focus right now is on just delivering a great product that finds strong product market fit that people enjoy using and increasingly find convenient and useful. We started with the Ray-Ban Meta glasses. Mark went through kind of the three principles of building glasses, but the thing about these is even if they were powered off, they're still just a good-looking, comfortable pair of glasses that's either you can wear as sunglasses or optical glasses.
Right.
And then we add functionality to it. And so similarly with the Meta Ray-Ban display, like we're really focused on it just being something that people are finding value out of. And we're focusing on messaging and making the Ray-Ban Meta glasses just better with the viewfinder and things the display can deliver, and increasingly AI. So that's the focus right now.
Right.
From a business model standpoint, part of it is when you're launching a first generation device, you're pretty burdened with a lot of the investment, with the research, R&D investment costs just to deliver that. And so whenever you're amortizing your capital expenditures and everything else over, the generation 1 unit volume, it'll be less good than when you hit large scale and you're able to
it adds up.
much more. It adds up, yeah. And
Right.
with subsequent generations, your yield gets better, so you're throwing away less materials and less devices that don't
Right.
make it, most that don't make it. So that's one part of it. And so we expect the economics to just get better as our manufacturing matures and we hit higher scale. And then
So
from there,
does that mean I want to get into the second part of it, but does that mean at $800, will you be selling these units at a loss?
well, we think so $799 for the glasses and the band together. We think, we price it there because we think that's the right price for the category and where we think it will be for running a responsible business as we're hitting scale. So we feel good about the price. And, similar to all the glasses we've made, we're not trying to make a massive profit on the per unit right out of the gate. We're trying to get there with time. We're really focused on just making sure that we're meeting people
Right.
with a good price and a great product.
Right. Okay. So I cut you off. You were talking about you were continuing with the business model. Talk to me about the other ways to make money.
Yeah, that's so great. So software. So at the end of the day, we're a software company, and we do expect that we will be making margins on the hardware side. You know, our line of glasses that we're not talking about, which is the Ray-Ban Meta glasses, the Oakley Meta Houstons, the Oakley Meta Vanguards, which those are extremely, the sport glasses are extremely fun if you try the slow-mo video.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, those are already a responsible business just on hardware. And then we're looking to, we're a software company. It's what we do. And so we expect to make a business model with software. And so AI subscriptions would be one example. And I think there'll be other ways that we'll be able to monetize with that. Once we're able to hit, once devices hit scale and we add more and more software, the AI gets better, we think there'll be good opportunities there.
Right. So I want to get on subscriptions, but very quickly, you talked about the other devices. So the Oakleys and the Ray-Bans without the display. So it sounds like those are profitable right now, then on a per unit basis.
Mm-hmm. Yep, they are. Let me see what I got here. I got my Oakley Meta. Oh shoot, where'd they go? Oh, here's the Oakley Meta Vanguard.
There you go.
The blue ones. I was wearing these when I was doing the Diplo Run Club last night, and they worked.
Right.
We had 30 people taking videos at once.
I haven't done the Diplo Run Club yet, but I know that you're a big runner, and so that looked like a ton of fun. I kind of want to get into the super intelligence side of this, but on the AI subscriptions, timeline wise, how are you thinking about when do you see those AI subscriptions rolling out potentially?
I mean, we're going to kind of see, we've rebooted in a Meta. I think we're revamping the AI efforts a little bit, staffed up Alexander and Nat and the MSL team. And obviously we have big expectations for the next generation of the Llama model and what's able to be powered in the glasses from that. I mean, I think of the glasses and wearables as the best delivery vehicle for AI. I mean, this is a device that can see what you see, hear what you hear, and just be a personalized assistant that helps you throughout your day. And so when that functionality is ready, I think there'll be features that it'll make sense to pay for, or pay for, some amount of
And maybe
usage.
advertising too at some point.
I mean, I worked on advertising for years at Meta, and I mean, the thing about ads is it only makes sense when you have a large scale. Otherwise, it doesn't make sense the advertisers don't want to do custom formats that are targeted at a small number of users. And so until we're hitting, it's not even something worth talking about until we're hitting like a really large scale of device users. And so we have no plans in the works right now on that, just because it's really a scale question before it's even interesting. Like even like Threads doesn't have ads in it right now because it hasn't hit the scale yet.
Right. Well, so you talked about Alexander Wang and you talked about the super intelligence group. One of the things I wanted to get an understanding from you leading the wearables group is how is your team, the wearables team, working with that super intelligence group right now?
We're partnering closely. So the AI that's on the glasses, and the top two use cases for the glasses right now, or for the Ray-Ban Metas, are using them as a Bluetooth headset for your phone and for capturing photos and videos that you would have otherwise missed. And we see an increasing amount of usage in sports scenarios. That's why we leaned into the Oakley Meta Vanguards. But AI is the third use, and we're seeing that increase. We see people doing hands-free calling. We see them doing hands-free messaging. The top AI use case is somewhat simple right now. It's just, asking questions in the moment. I've got a 6-year-old son, and he has nonstop questions for me about the world around him. And as I'm driving,
that's where the super intelligent has to satisfy the 6-year-olds too.
he's got really specific questions, and he asks me how many people can fit in a football stadium. Saying many thousands is really unsatisfying for him, and I've got to tell him the exact number that fit in Levi Stadium. Otherwise, he will keep asking. And so we're seeing that work pretty well. And the Meta AI experience on the glasses is powered by, we take the models that the MSL team makes and we distill and we optimize them for the form factor that we have. You want on the glasses, if you just got like a long response that'd be in text, that's frustrating. So we do a lot of work to make the response shorter and more optimized for what you'd want in the glasses.
So they're actually giving you the models and they're helping you sort of adjust those models, repackage them into sort of the size of model that would fit, or I get not fit, but that would work with the glasses essentially.
Well, it's in some cases fit. So like there's multiple dimensions to it. I mean, we have kind of a cascaded architecture where we have models that run on the glasses, we have them running on the phone, we have them running in the cloud. And depending on the latency requirements, depending on whether something requires a real-time lookup of information, depending on in the future whether something will be agentic or do deep research, there's different. The architecture is whether it's doing commands out to your glasses or the phone. I mean, it's architected pretty dynamically. But in general, the way to think about it is we're partnering with them to build the underlying models, because if there are languages or domains or tasks that we want the AI to be especially great at,
Yeah.
then we're providing data sets, providing evals. We're helping to make sure that the underlying model is great for that.
Right. And so it sounds like you're working pretty closely with the group, and the group is obviously it's a newer sort of team that has come in. I wonder, has anything changed about their approach to how they've worked with the wearables team, or how they've sort of adjusted the models in the last 2 to 3 months, given the new talent? Have there been any adjustments that they've made explicitly working with you?
Well, one thing is, I mean, uh, one thing I love about them is they're very bullish about wearables and the glasses that we're making. And so they brought, I'm not saying there wasn't excitement before, but there is just a lot of excitement about seeing what we can do to make the wearables great. Nat Friedman was on our, in our advisory group for a while, so he was pretty familiar with the roadmap. And when he came in, he was especially excited to figure out
Mm.
how to lead into wearables. But I'd say in general, you know, they've been great partners, as we expect them to be, but they've brought some new approaches to how to do model development
Right.
at Meta. And, some of that's spilled over into the partnerships we have, just in terms of how they want to do model training, what's holding engineers back or researchers back. And just, there's some things are a bit of a new approach, and we've appreciated it.
And what is holding engineers and researchers back right now?
I'd say it's not one that means we're just trying to maximize efficiency and productivity for like every engineer who joins wants to have just be spend all day getting a lot of stuff done, and so
Yeah.
we're just analyzing like, hey, when you arrive, how long does it take to get set up? Do you have, machines you can use to train models? Do you have like, is there stuff that's in the way of just being fast and productive out of the gate? And so it's just a list of things trying to bang out. It's not dissimilar to, you know, what was it, over 16 years ago when I started here, and it was like,
Yeah.
hey,
So
what's
it
some of that
sounds like the
basic
MSL
development?
team is kind of helping is sort of helping the organization, and maybe helping the wearables team actually be a little more scrappy with things, and sort of get things done a bit faster almost, or right out of the gate as they join.
Hey, the faster the models get better, and the faster we're able to distill them, and the smaller they get, and the improvements in latency. These are all good things that we can't wait for. I mean, we really think that one of the great things about the wearables that we're building is they're great for stuff other than AI right now, and they're
Yeah.
getting increasingly good at AI. And I think that one thing you'll see in the next 1 to 2 years, I think wearables will get really competitive in the AI space, and we're trying to, get ready for that and make sure
Hmm.
that we're able to compete well.
How do you think about competing with Google?
I'd only be speculating. I mean, I've seen the talks they've given, but I don't
Because
really
I
have
mean,
any
the models are
information.
great. A lot of people. That's one of the advantages that people say that they have, is that the models work really well, and fundamentally, a lot of these devices will end up working on the models.
Uh, Gemini is a Gemini is definitely an impressive model, and the perception stack is especially good, meaning like the
Yeah.
visual recognition of stuff. Which, yeah, that's pretty good. They've got a good model. Um, no
I mean,
wearables on the market yet, so we'll see. We'll see. We'll have to see.
so you're banking on the fact that you're coming in first, and you're actually giving people something to work with.
We've I think as it really wasn't clear if glasses were going to be successful. A lot of companies had kind of false starts there,
Yeah.
or tried and didn't get the traction they were looking for. Us included. I think Ray-Ban Stories wasn't as successful as we had hoped, but I think we've definitely shown the most commitment to the space. If you look at, we've launched 5 devices this half between the new Ray-Ban Meta glasses, the Oakley Meta Houstons, the Oakley Meta Vanguards, the Meta Ray-Ban display, and the Meta Neural Band. Like, clearly we've had a pretty substantial commitment that is coming to market now in the space. So right
So
now, I think we've
you're not phased by the model. The models don't scare you.
well, I think our models need to get great. I think the AI needs to get great for the devices to really deliver on the vision that we and others in the industry have. And so we're focusing a lot on it. You know, partnering. We're really partnering across the company as much as we can because that is going to be critical. And you can start to see glimmers of it where
Hmm.
you're able to recognize an object that's in front of you. You can translate a sign that's in front of you. My favorite thing, it sounds really simple, but if I hold up a phone number, I can say, look and call this number. And it's like these small, simple things, but they add like little bits of value throughout your day. And
Right.
I think you're starting to see the potential.
Let me ask you this question: what is the biggest sort of technical holdup right now from you achieving sort of your grandest visions for this product? I mean, is it battery? Is it weight? Like, what is the biggest technical challenge for you right now that you wish you could just really break through it?
Oh, that's the thing about working on Wearables. It's not one thing. It's the balance of all these
Tell it.
things.
I mean, give us a list. Like, what's on your whiteboard right now? What are the rate limiting steps that you just really need to break through?
Well, I think we showed the bookends of what we're working on. So we've got the Ray-Ban Meta glasses. They're in the market right now. They just got better with the announcement that we had yesterday. And these, working with EssilorLuxottica, are partners who have a really strict definition of what it means to be an all-day wearable, comfortable pair of glasses around the dimensions, the comfort, the weight.
Hmm.
And so we had real strict limits that we just could not violate in these glasses. And so these were basically like form factor first, and then we'll put as much technology in them as we can
Hmm.
without sacrificing the form factors. That's one bookend. I'd say the Orion prototype that we showed last year at Connect is the other bookend, where those glasses had 7 pieces of custom silicon in them. The waveguides were made out of silicon carbide, which we chose is the material with the highest
That's
index
what
of
you want to
correction.
get to there, essentially.
It had a bunch of sensors, it had a bunch of silicon, it had a big 70-degree field of view display. And so the question for us, roadmap wise, is, and we just announced a device, the Meta Ray-Ban display, which is in between there.
Right.
So we're starting to march up. So if you had form factor first and
Hmm.
then
Hmm.
Ryan over here, we're starting to march up. But the big question for us is like each thing, it's these trade-offs. It's okay, for each of these hardware components, there's value you can add.
Hmm.
Like for example, if we added eye tracking sensors into these glasses, the AI would know what you were looking at as opposed to having to guess, in the scene that's in front of you. But with each of them, you get form factor trade-offs. And so each of these things we're kind of weighing. And so it's a list of things. You basically take everything that was in Orion, and those are the different trade-offs that we're looking at. But yeah, batteries got more efficient, software got more efficient. If the displays got more efficient, meaning more power efficient,
Right.
to be brighter with the same size, like these are all the things we're working through.
I want to talk about the neural band, but on that list of trade-offs, what is the hardest trade-off right now? What's number one?
Oh,
The
the
the, the
display
biggest.
is the hardest thing to do. The display is by far the hardest thing to do. I mean, the glasses that we announced yesterday, the Meta Ray-Ban display,
Yeah.
I mean, they're 5,000 nits, 42 pixels per degree, which is a
Yeah.
higher resolution than any headset, major headset in the market. And when you put them on, no light leaks out, so you can't. So bystanders can't see what you're looking at or tell the
Yeah.
display.
Yeah. So fitting all that in, I can see.
But it's a 20-degree monocular field of view. Accomplishing that in a 70-degree binocular, which is what Orion was, but with that form factor, I mean, that's, the largest investment we have is in display. We're doing not one technology, multiple technologies, and that's definitely the hardest industry problem to solve.
Right. Let's talk about the neuroband, which is one of the coolest things that you unveiled this week. So,
Sure.
look, I thought it was really exciting. I immediately started thinking of all the things you could do with the band, and so I mean, I've got a laundry list of things that I want to get to. But I mean, very quickly, could you ever see yourself putting a screen of some kind or attaching something else to the band?
Oh, that was the first question. I mean, you could consider it. So So we acquired a company, Control Labs, many years ago, based in New York City. And they'd been working on the surface electromyography technology. The band they were developing at the time, I wish I had it with me here, is enormous. It looked like a cyberpunk
Yeah.
thing that you find in Brooklyn only, but it was a research band. So it had a lot of different channels. It was big, and they were trying to figure out if they could build machine learning models to predict the signals that you were sending from your brain to your muscles on your wrist. And they'd reached a certain level of breakthrough that we made that acquisition. We've since turned it into a much more desirable form factor.
Yeah.
But the generation one that we did here, the whole point was, it's focused on one thing only, and that is input, and it's input for the glasses. And so that's where we started. There's, we get a ton of questions for it. It's like, man, I wish it could do fitness tracking. It's interesting. The question, could you turn in a watch or there's
Yeah.
surely could think of these things, and there's no form factor we're not looking at or feature not considering. But right now, we're so focused on getting it to work with Gen 1 and having it be great for input. And there's a lot of different input things we want to
Yeah.
add to this, like our
Would you ever do like the way you're partnered with SR Exotica for the glasses? Would you do a partnership with Garmin, for example, for the neural band?
I mean, well, we did. It's funny you mentioned Garmin. We announced a partnership with Garmin yesterday.
Oh,
Uh,
okay. Maybe I missed that. Sorry. My
well,
apologies.
it's not in the. It's so we announced it. So if you're wearing the Oakley Meta Vanguards and
Right.
you're wearing a Garmin watch, um, it enables auto capture. So if you're going so the run I went on yesterday in the Diplo Run Club, which you should check out, he's around here, it's very fun.
Yeah. Yeah.
It
And
was
you're a
set
runner.
up.
I know you're a runner, so that I know that was a lot of fun for you.
But, it was set up so every quarter mile, the glasses would take a short video, and then at the end of the run,
Right.
we automatically stitched together in our app a reel for you that had those short videos stitched
Right.
together, and it overlaid your Garmin stats on it. And the Garmin watch is what creates the triggers. So you can do it at certain intervals, would be great for marathon, or
Yeah.
at certain speeds. So, like, once you hit a certain speed skiing down a mountain, it'll
Yeah.
take
Yeah.
the video for you.
Just stick with me. I mean, could
Oh,
we
go
could we see a Garmin partnership? I mean, it makes so much sense to me. No.
I mean, look, I've been wearing Garmin watches for over 15 years. I'm a huge fan of the stuff they're doing. We've got to, I mean, the partnership we started is so you can do fun, make the runs more fun, more social, or cycling, or skiing, or golfing, or surfing. Glasses are waterproof. Um, but, hey, maybe there's more to do, but right now we're just really focused on getting the input to work.
Okay. Last question for you because I know you got to go. I really want to just ask you about how people how you see them using the display glasses specifically. And one of the things that has I've been reflecting on a little bit over the last 24 hours is March has said, it allows you to be sort of in the moment, more present. You're not looking at your phone and stuff like that. And I take that point, but on the flip side, I've been thinking a lot about how this could just be more distracting for people. And what I mean by that is, you put your phone away, I don't want to look at it. Okay. And meanwhile, if I have the text messages coming in my eyes, he gave that story of if I'm talking to you and I don't want to get distracted texting somebody because it's rude, right? I could just do it, more subtly with but I mean, it means that I'm not there with you. I'm not present. I'm more distracted. So like, how do you think about that?
Well, so I mean, you got to try the glasses. I mean, we got to get you a demo. We got to. I mean, this will be more clear and obvious, like if you put a pair on and give it a try. But it's a monocular display, which means it's on one side. It's 20-degree field of view, so it's about the size of a
Yeah.
smartwatch right here, and it's intentionally a little bit off to the side. So it's really meant to be a glanceable display. It's
Right.
not intended for long form consumption of stuff. It's really not tailored for that, and we intentionally are not mirroring the it would be easy to do, but we're not doing it, mirroring all the notifications from your phone because
Right.
we want it to be really selective for you in terms of what comes in there. So for me, I just get WhatsApp notifications. And for me, WhatsApp is very like, it's my wife.
Yeah.
It's like a curated list of when that comes in, I actually like the only reason I run with a cell phone as opposed to leaving that at home is that if I do get a call from my wife, I kind of need to answer
Right.
it.
Right.
And so it's meant to be high signal. And so you can just really quickly, instead of like having to like look up at a watch and hit it or grab your phone out of a pocket to see if it's important, it's really like it's such a one-click,
Right.
non-distracting tap that it's like it really does help you be more in the moment. And then there's a control center. If you swipe left, it's really easy to hit do not disturb if
Yeah.
you that.
But I mean, hear me out. I'm just thinking at dinner, your family dinner, you're sitting with your wife or with your kids. And, yeah, I don't know if the vision is to have everyone wearing the glasses, maybe even your kids are wearing the glasses. But let's say the idea is that everyone will be wearing glasses in this augmented reality. I mean, would you not worry that, hey, my kids are, they're eating dinner, we're talking about our day, and they're getting text messages like, and they're not with me, they're not here.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's, different norms develop in different circumstances. Like, right now you've got hey, if you're having a family dinner, it's like put the phone face down or in the other room. I mean, similarly, like the glasses have an off switch, if you want to just be present in it. But the idea is that, these are really intended to be great for, when you want to be alerted if something comes, like I'm waiting for a phone call, like I need to know if a message from this person comes in, and like right now, we'll have settings. We think AI will make that even better over time to learn what's high signal and what's not. Similar to how you've got all these AI extensions to email apps that allow you to really curate through and boost signal for stuff that's urgent and just kind of push away stuff that's not. And so, like, the intention of the product and the way you've designed it is to make it like low friction and quick
Right.
to get high signal stuff and deal with it. But of course, like a lot of this is just going to depend on how people use it and the norms that develop over time, and similar to you see with other form factors.
Great. Well, Alex, it's a very cool product. Thank you so much for coming on the show and telling us more about how you're thinking about the strategy. We appreciate your time, and I look forward to having you on more as you unveil more and more products. Wearables is a fascinating space. That is Alex Himel, the VP of Wearables at Meta.
All right, thanks so much for having me.
Thank you. That was Alex Himel from Meta. Okay, well, Nvidia made some major news yesterday announcing it is taking a $5 billion stake in Intel, and that wasn't the only big investment it is making. The company also agreed to pay $900 million to hire the chief executive at a company called Infabrica and also bring on some of their employees to tell us not just what Infabrica is, but also what this Intel deal could mean in the long run. I want to bring on a great panel for you. Anissa Gardizy is our cloud and compute reporter at The Information. Aaron Ginn is the CEO of a GPU hosting company called Hydra, and Jay Goldberg is a senior analyst at Seaport Research Partners. Thank you so much to the three of you for being here. It's a big panel for a Friday, but I am excited to get to it. Anissa, very quickly, I mean, just walk me through the brass tacks here. What do we need to know about the Intel deal here?
Right. So Nvidia is taking a multi-billion-dollar stake in Intel, and the two companies have agreed to co-design a few product lines. I think the thing that people will be most interested in is that now, instead of just offering an ARM-based CPU next to the Nvidia GPU, Nvidia wants a tighter integration with the x86 architecture, which is the kind of processor that Intel and AMD build. So yeah, what you need to know is that Nvidia has a large stake in Intel now, and they're working on two products.
And very quickly, I mean, just for people who might not be as familiar, just explain to us the relationship between GPUs and CPUs, and how they sort of relate to each other in this story here.
So before AI, most data centers were filled with what you mentioned is called a CPU, a central processing unit. They're the traditional workhorse of the data center and can do all kinds of typical computing tasks. But over the past 2 years, a lot of data center capacity has shifted to GPUs, which is the chip NVIDIA makes. And so, but you can't have a GPU work without a CPU. And so that's sort of where this Intel deal comes into play.
Got it. Okay, that was the detail that I was hoping to get clarity on. Okay, so Aaron, I want to come to you. Do you think this is a good deal for Intel? Is NVIDIA the winner? What do you think?
I think at this point, probably any deal is a good deal for Intel, right? What I think what NVIDIA is trying to do here is they're trying to figure out ways of continuing to grow their control of their production line, as well as if you look at the steps even of the most recent acquisition, they're always trying to find ways to protect their kind of surrounding ecosystem and finding ways of increasing customer experience, reliability, because even under the previous CPU stage of, you could say, infrastructure, the end customer kind of lost control outside of the semiconductor. And so what he's trying to do is control more of that customer experience, basically to be the Apple of silicon. So he's constantly thinking of ways of assuring that the customer gets like the best experience possible. And so some of the Intel stuff is to, that the fact of like they're a struggling company, they're the one that has a legitimate foundry business in America. But the other one is that the alternative would be AMD, and AMD has a quite robust GPU business line. And so if Intel goes under or disappears, then they have to buy the CPU that could fund the GPU that is the alternative of their, from their competitor. So I think it's more structured around that, where they're kind of playing zone defense here, but as well as like they still as Anissa was saying, that they need CPUs to run in their HGX series, and that there still is some technical limitations of ARM in the data center layer that they have to work through to get customers to move from x86, which is the Intel CPUs, into ARM. But ARM, I suspect, will continue to be the flagship of NVIDIA, but there's still going to be many years in which they need an x86 platform to continue to grow their business.
Got it. Okay. Well, Jay, that was those are some good points that Aaron brought up. What do you think? Do you agree?
I don't totally agree. I think first, let me just say, Intel needs to survive. It's important for the industry. It's important for America. So them getting cash in the door, I think that helps. They need money to keep this going.
Right.
But that's about it as far as this deal goes. I don't think there's a lot in here for Intel. It's a good deal for Nvidia in that it gets them into Intel's sort of core cloud CPU base. In terms of absolute dollars, it's a pretty small revenue opportunity here, because in most AI systems today that use GPUs, like Anissa says, every GPU cluster needs some number of CPUs attached to it, sort of 1-4, 1-8 kind of ratio. And today, Nvidia has that CPU in their Grace line of CPUs, and they're going to update that next year with Vera. And so they're in really good shape around that. What this does is it does provide an alternative to AMD for those customers who want to use somebody else's CPU. They don't want to use an NVIDIA CPU. They don't want to be all NVIDIA, so they want some alternative. And that, it's going to be Intel. But I think most important too is this is a good deal for the Intel's newest shareholder, the United States government, right? Jensen Huang made Donald Trump $3 billion yesterday, so not many people can say that. And I think that is
so you think that's the major calculus here in this investment.
I don't know about major, but I think that is absolutely part of the calculus.
Okay, Aaron, what do you think of that?
I mean, I think we actually said the same thing, but there is a structural difference of adopting ARM to x86 that is quite significant. And so, like my firm is we were one of the largest buyers of the Grace series.
And just remind, x86 is the CPU.
Yeah. It's an instruction set.
Yeah.
So like the future of data center infrastructure is ARM. It's the most logical kind of next iteration. Your phone is ARM, and any type of like dense computing framework generally leans on ARM based on efficiency, and as well as it continues the same trend of which that Jensen wants to continue the integrate his own ecosystem together to where he is like Apple. So it shouldn't be lost. I mean, he's literally used that metaphor. So it shouldn't be lost on you that Apple uses ARM. So and again to try to buy ARM, right? So that is a clear trajectory of where he wants to go as a company. But the x86 problem is a significant problem if you're trying to win over enterprise customers. And as I was saying that this money is like nothing compared to when you have a 60 to 70% profit margin, depending on what quarter, what you're doing, you're selling hundreds of billions of dollars a year. Like this is nothing on the spectrum for NVIDIA. But the foundry program is super important to like America's sovereignty and to Jensen himself. But Jensen has put his bag with TSMC. But as Jay was saying, that there is clearly political orientation here. Like to look past that would be silly. It's staring right in front of your face.
Right.
The Intel needs to be supported. That's true. And it's semi-nationalized in some weird construct that we kind of embedded this administration.
Right.
And so Jensen is the most important semiconductor company in the world. So you have to find ways to which you integrate these two things.
Anissa, you were on the press call last night. What did you get from that? Was there anything about the foundry business that they said that stood out to you?
Yes, there were tons of questions to Jensen and Lip-Bu about whether this initial deal could potentially lead to NVIDIA becoming a customer of the Intel foundry down the line. And both executives did not directly answer that question. Jensen said something about how NVIDIA is always evaluating different options, but Lip-Bu didn't really talk about this angle. And to what both Aaron and Jay are saying, the reason that the US government cares so much about Intel is for its foundry. And this deal kind of had no optimism around, that aspect of an Intel NVIDIA relationship.
Well, it sounds like they didn't even talk about it.
Right. They did not talk about it.
Jay,
we're hopeful. We want them.
Well, Jay, we were talking yesterday. Jay, you were astounded that this was the case.
It was really remarkable to me that they spent all this time. At least half the calls, half the questions of the conference yesterday were about this, and they refused to commit to using Intel as a foundry. And what really stood out for me was Lip-Bu Tan, the CEO of Intel, could not say a single good thing about his own foundry process. Right? It was Jensen from Nvidia who actually was able to talk up. Intel has this great packaging, but even Lip-Bu couldn't say we're going to evaluate everything, but we really like our internal process. He couldn't even say that, and I mean that to me spoke volumes. I think I'm very concerned about it because like Aaron was saying, we need Intel Foundry to work. For the industry, for the country, and I'm very, very concerned doesn't have a future.
Aaron, I'm going to give you 30 seconds here just to give us one last thought, and then I want to go into Infabrica. Just get your last thought here, then we'll move on.
Well, I think at the earnings call, the last one that the Intel CEO did, he did basically kind of talk trash about his foundry and said that we're only going to do things at which have this really high bar of customer orders. But as anyone who works in foundry knows, that it gets much more, you have to integrate yourself to the customer and work with them over a number of years to finally launch a new product. And so the Intel's actually, from a technical perspective, a very good engineering company. It has a long track record of having great innovations, great advancements on the chip side. So they can do this. It's just structurally they got stuck into this. They don't know how to service people outside of their own company. And I think it was a mistake under Pat to just say Intel has to be its own customer. I think that was probably the mistake. But Pat had the general right orientation, which is this business has to continue. Right. We have to find a way of accelerating this. But I think they really struggle with trying the idea of can we actually do everything Jensen wants us to do?
Right. Anissa, I want to go to you. So this deal with Infabrica. Infabrica is a company that you actually know from our top 50. What do we call it? It's the information 50 most promising startups list. Yeah, we call it TI-50 here in the newsroom. But Infabrica was, I think, if I recall, the top pick in our compute category that you put together. I want to know why they were so high on your list, because that maybe might tell us something about why NVIDIA was so eager to go after the talent.
I ranked Infabrica high on the list of computing startups last year because they were tackling one of the major problems that companies face when they put together NVIDIA GPUs. These clusters of chips are getting larger and larger, and the networking between each chip and between each rack system is not advancing at the same rate. And so the founders of Infabrica wanted to create a better network fabric. I think you can sort of get how they chose their name. A better network fabric to connect large clusters of GPUs. And so they were building a technology that was clearly destined to work potentially, in NVIDIA clusters. And NVIDIA cares a lot about networking. They obviously bought Mellanox. So that's why they were high on the list last year.
Jay, this kind of, I feel like this relates to a conversation that we had last time on the show, which is you talking about NVIDIA wanting to sell customers the entire package. And you actually saw that as something that could hold that could hold the business back.
Well, I'll say this: the fight over AI compute is now very much shaping up to be a fight around networking. If you talk to NVIDIA, off the record, they'll say one of the big performance gains advantages they have versus the competition in GPU is the fact that they have this networking stack. But in contrast, you have their rival in this space is shaping up to be Broadcom, which has a company with deep networking expertise. And so this is really the battle between these two companies. The biggest front that's going to open up this year or next year is going to be around networking. And so this acquihire or at Fabrica is important because it really is sort of one more big raising the stakes even further in this upcoming fight.
Right. Aaron,
if I remember correctly, the CEO of Fabrica was at Broadcom. So he's definitely like a well-known person. But I will mention, I talked to some people familiar with the deal last night, and they mentioned, yes, we're hiring, NVIDIA is hiring the CEO, but they're also hiring a very large part of the engineering team and others at the firm. So it's sort of not like one of those AI startups where you could have one person who's the main deal that you want to hire. I get the sense that a lot of people at the company are going to go to NVIDIA.
Aaron, you were nodding. What were your thoughts here? Do you think it was a surprising move at all?
No, I mean they love acquirers. That's a large portion of NVIDIA's acquisitions are acquirers, and as well as if you look at their Lepton acquisition, if you look at the talent of that team, many of them are experts in ARM, and they have like a long track record of like building out ARM frameworks. So they like hiring very good, highly experienced people to like join the team, and as well as like for them the payout is immense, and as well as like to NVIDIA it's small. And so when you're at this such scale, as Jay was saying, that it is a battle over networking, and if you actually look at the depreciation schedules of because I operate data centers, you look at depreciation schedules for the node versus the networking. Networking is about twice as long as the nodes, so it's going to stay there twice as long as the actual like compute equipment itself. And so it's a much more permanent set into the actual data center, as well as like implementing networking is significantly harder to do than the rest of the actual stack. Because you can slot, and you're designing, when you're implementing data center, you can slot the nodes out because you got to, work on them occasionally. But the networking generally just stays there. And that's all the crazy cables you see, right? The cable work is like that's a lot of man hours to do. So it's an important part of like maintaining his position in the market is maintaining control of networking.
Right. Well, look, I think we could talk a lot longer about this, and we should have more networking startups on the show. Is my takeaway from this. So, Anissa, maybe we'll get you to go back to those companies that you picked last year on TI-50. We'll see if a couple of their CEOs will come on, because it's. I mean, look, we're batting a pretty high average here with those startups doing great things. Thank you so much to the three of you for coming on. We really appreciate it. That is Anissa, Jay, and Aaron. Okay. Well, Elon Musk has a number of lieutenants helping him run his empire. And today, my colleague Theo Wayt published a profile on one of the most interesting people responsible for helping Musk achieve all of his data center ambitions. Brent Mayo has gone from working on oil rigs all over the world to now being key to xAI's supercomputer efforts. And he's also an important character in a pollution battle that is shaking out in the city of Memphis. Joining me now is Theo Wayt, our reporter on all things Elon Musk, to tell us more about this story. Welcome to the show, Theo. Great to have you back.
Thanks for having me on.
Okay, so now before we get into Brent Mayo, I mean, I just want to set the stage a bit. I mean, we know that data centers are a huge part of the AI story. But I think one thing that we forget is just how big of a lift constructing these data centers are and how quickly they need to come up. So can you tell us more about that?
Yeah, building a data center used to be something that took many years. You'd have to build a building, you'd have to wait for approvals from utilities and governments, and oftentimes it could take 3, 4, 5 years to get a facility online. The AI boom has made it so that companies are doing pretty extreme things to get data centers online as quickly as possible at all costs, and xAI is pretty much the most aggressive in that way. They've gone from 0 data centers to 2 pretty massive, supersized facilities in Memphis in less than 2 years, called Colossus 1 and Colossus 2. As you can see on the map there, they're in pretty dense areas of a city, which makes them pretty controversial locally. We did an analysis for this story and found that, within a 5-mile radius of these data centers, there's about 20,000 people within a 5-mile radius of the first one, 150,000 within a 5-mile radius of the second one. And The reason that matters is that xAI is using natural gas turbines to power these facilities rather than waiting for a connection to the grid, which is because of the super aggressive pace that Elon has set for them to get compute online as quickly as possible.
And so you talked about the pollution issue. What do natural gas turbines here have to do with that? How do they make that worse?
So the turbines that xAI is using are turbines that were previously, used often in like fracking for the oil and gas industry, where they're sitting in the middle of nowhere and you can truck in a bunch of natural gas, put it in there, and get a bunch of power online way quicker than you could waiting for a hookup to the grid. But they are, natural gas turbines, therefore they're emitting pollution at the same time, which is less of an issue when you're in the middle of nowhere building a, fracking setup, but a much bigger issue when you're in a city.
And I want to get to this person you wrote about, Brent Mayo, but do we know why they picked this particular area, or and why they're so close to these I guess more dense or urbanly dense cities and towns?
Because
I can't speak today.
Sure. No, because there were buildings ready for them. The first data center is in a former appliance factory that was sitting empty and had some, connections to the grid that they could eventually build on. The second one was just a warehouse in an area with a bunch of other warehouses. So they could just, show up and start putting stuff in.
So tell me about Brent Mayo. How does he fit into the story?
So he's kind of a person that could only exist in Elon Musk's universe because his job description is incredibly fluid. He spent, a lot of his career pre-Elon working in oil rigs and oil and gas engineering in the Gulf of Mexico, the Middle East, all around the world. Then he joined SpaceX in 2022 and moved to xAI last year when the company was starting to build its first data center in Memphis. He was initially kind of a behind-the-scenes engineering type of guy, but he's gotten a lot more public as xAI has become a big story. He's constantly meeting politicians, business leaders, community leaders to try to win support for xAI in the city.
And why does Musk like him specifically? What is it about Mayo that Musk has taken a liking to?
Well, he's the, kind of person that thrives in Musk world, which is someone that's extremely energetic that you can just kind of throw at any problem and he'll work 24/7 toward it. He's all about the Musk hardcore culture where you could get a call from the boss in the middle of the night or, at any hour of the day and be super gung-ho about whatever he wants you to do. And he's also, a pretty personable guy. I talked to plenty of people in Memphis, politicians and activists who might not necessarily agree with him, who said that, he's intense, but he's, somewhat charming, even if you disagree with him.
And tell me about, if we just zoom out a little bit, I mean, I imagine as all of these AI companies seek to ramp up their data center efforts, it's kind of interesting to think that, I mean, Musk has this guy. I don't know, maybe Sam Altman has his own person. I feel like these sort of industrial characters must be getting more and more, I guess, they must be becoming more and more important to this story for all of these billionaires, especially that are trying to wrap this stuff up.
Yeah, I mean, xAI is an extreme example. They are, being especially aggressive and fast with building data centers, but Meta and OpenAI and, other companies are also using natural gas turbines now, which used to be a huge no-no for basically all of them. But when they go into a city, AWS, Google, like these are companies that have huge public relations departments and government affairs people that, are slick and they wear suits and they, that's fully their job, is dealing with communities and politicians. Mayo is obviously not that. Like I talked to people who were in this meeting with him and the mayor of Memphis and several other prominent locals where he, shows up wearing a hoodie and he's like dropping F-bombs and stuff. That's not what someone from AWS is going to do. Like they're going to be in a suit and they're going to be very professional.
And did he talk to you for this story at all?
No, unfortunately.
If you did have an interview with him, what would you ask him?
Based on the way he talks about working for Elon and, the posts on his X feed, I would say, how much sleep do you get every night and how do you have so much energy?
But I mean, riff with me here for a second. I mean, strategically, I kind of wonder, how he might think about the supercomputer strategy that XAI is building out. I almost wonder, how he's thinking about, like, is it just faster, faster, faster that is, the competitive advantage, or I don't know. If I had him in front of me, I might ask, how are you building this data center to be different? I don't know. I wonder if those are questions that you talked about with the other people in his orbit at all.
No, I think those are fair questions. I mean, the long-term strategy for XAI is pretty unclear. Like, they're throwing a bunch of money and a bunch of resources at these data centers, but I don't think they fully know how they're going to power them in the long term, like beyond, the turbines that they're setting up right now. I think there are tons of questions about the long-term strategy that I'd love to ask him.
Right. Great. Well, Theo, thank you so much for coming on the show, and thank you for putting together that map with our graphics team too. That was very helpful for those of us who are not familiar with that part of America. That is Theo Wayt, our Elon Musk reporter at The Information. Okay. Well, OpenAI has made its hardware ambitions clear, and now a new story we published today at The Information reveals that Jony Ive is not the only Apple alumni that the company is going after hiring. OpenAI has been poaching other key hardware talent from Apple, and it is even talking to some of the same suppliers. I want to bring on Aaron Tilley, one of the reporters on that story, to talk more about what he's found. Aaron, welcome back to the show. It's great to have you.
Hey, thanks for having me.
So tell me about what you found in your reporting.
Yeah, so we found that OpenAI has really been accelerating these hardware efforts. Obviously, it's on track to release a device in the next year or so. And to do that, they've really engaged their Apple network. They hired Apple people to start this, and they're continuing to build out that team. And the network is all from Apple hardware teams. So they're really aggressively going after these folks, and they're doing and it's a pretty easy job to kind of find these folks. They're very excited to move to OpenAI. It's an interesting opportunity, and they're finding an easy time poaching these folks.
So it's been an easy sell to get them to come over.
Yeah, it's been I think from what I've spoken to folks,
because Apple's a great company to work for, I think, right?
oh yeah, it's stable. They don't lay off people like the rest of the tech world. I think it's a great place. But speaking with folks in sort of that hardware universe, I think a lot of people in hardware engineering at Apple have become a little uninspired and bored with sort of the rote work they're doing, kind of the incremental sort of updates to the iPhones and Macs and Apple Watches. So,
right.
I think this is quite exciting. This idea.
So, and I mean, I wonder if your reporting told you anything about what kinds of hardware products OpenAI is trying to build, because I mean, there's been a lot of ideas thrown around. Did you sort of get any insight there?
Yeah, we heard a few things. I mean, I think primarily it appears, and in court documents, they have acknowledged sort of a plan around a family of devices that they want to release. And there's a range of sort of form factors. They're looking at a smart speaker without a display. So obviously something like you could think like an Amazon Alexa-like device. Smart glasses we've heard as a talked about form factor. Digital recorders.
And are they going after talent that have experience building these types of products? Are they looking at it in terms of manufacturing? Like, how are they? I guess I'm not asking you who your sources are, but I'm asking, how do we sort of know this?
I mean, I've spoken to people who've been in the lab. We have people in supply chain, Gore-Tech in Luxshare, which are Apple suppliers, are working on these devices. So similar to like in the Apple world, there's a very, very large, complicated supply chain with a lot of folks, a lot of people in that chain. There's people now entering into and doing work with OpenAI here.
Right. I want to get some sense from how important Joni Ive is to these conversations. It feels like maybe this is an easier sell because people are saying, well, look, I mean, we want to go work with a visionary. Is he a pretty big part of these discussions?
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Involved very deeply in sort of the outreach and poaching, I think. And just, yeah, the draw of Johnny Ive, he is sort of the icon that brought Apple back from the brink with Steve Jobs in the late 90s. The deep partnership between those two made Apple into the company it is today. And so, just seeing him as that key piece of what made Apple, what used to make, some of these people think what Apple used to be, the growth of Apple, he is a key part of that.
Right. Talent is one side of the story. I wonder if you can talk a little bit about just how difficult it is, because a lot of companies have tried to do hardware. Of course, a lot of companies have not had Joni Ive by their side guiding them. But it doesn't strike me that this is a home run just if you can get a couple of great hardware engineers on board. I mean, we're talking a multi-year, multi-decade journey even for OpenAI.
Totally, for sure. I mean, I think Silicon Valley is littered with former Apple hardware employees trying to do startups. I think it's like the trying to translate being at a big company like Apple with tons of resources, surrounded by massive teams working on every element of a product, to a smaller, more scrappy kind of environment. That's really difficult for a lot of folks because there's just so much that goes into hardware at every sort of layer that you just need a team that can execute is really challenging outside of Apple. So there's been a lot of examples out there of sort of Apple hardware folks with a good idea, but they just can't bring it to life.
Last question for you. Every great story comes with more questions than answers sometimes. What questions did this raise for you with respect to OpenAI's hardware strategy, and what are you watching for?
Yeah, I mean, primarily the thing I was thinking about a lot in this is, does the world need another device, especially an AI device? Like, since the
We saw the glasses this week. I mean,
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, since the rise of ChatGPT, there's been a lot of, AI devices, the Humane AI pen.
Yeah.
There's just like none of these have shown, I think, any sort of value or are purpose for consumers, and have been complete flops for reviewers and sort of consumer demand. So I think, is Johnny Ive, is he going to show us that there is a path forward? Does the world need an AI device? Because I'm not convinced. I think the smartphone is a perfectly fine kind of device to interact with AI, even your Mac. I mean, most people are just typing into a Safari browser their ChatGPT prompts. They don't need a device to do this stuff. So I think that's the thing I'm thinking about, like, how necessary is this?
Yeah, and we just had Alex Himel on the show just a few minutes ago, and one of the questions I asked him was about, hey, with these glasses, I mean, isn't it distracting? Really, you make the argument that glasses allow you to be more present, and my point to him was, I actually think it adds distractions, and so I'm actually with you. I'm with you, and so I'm curious to see what they come out with. Aaron, thank you so much for coming on the show. That is Aaron Tilley, our Apple reporter here at The Information. Well, that does it for today's show. A reminder that we are live on this stream Monday through Friday at 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern. I want to thank Amazon Web Services, who is our presenting sponsor for this production. And I want to thank you for tuning in. We really do appreciate your viewership. I am already excited for our next show on Monday. We got a busy week planned for you, and so we will see you then. Until then, have a great weekend. Bye-bye for now.